Listen up.
I don't know if you ever shake it. I don't know if you surely don't forget it.
This is Scott Pioli. He was the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the most powerful men in professional football at the time. And in this interview, he is sitting across from Dan Patrick, trying to put words to something he witnessed in a parking lot on a Saturday morning in December 2012. And this is the moment the rest of the country found out what had happened.
Kansas City, where the linebacker Jovan Belcher was supposed to be taking the field today for the Chiefs. That is not going to happen, however. Police say Belcher killed his girlfriend on Saturday and then killed himself in front of his coach.
Now, we are going to go all the way back to the beginning and walk through everything, because what actually happened that morning was far more complicated than any single headline could capture. And the story of how it got there is the part nobody fully told. The reason this case hit so hard is that Jovan Belcher was exactly the kind of person you root for. He was not handed anything. He grew up in West Babylon, New York, raised mostly by his mother Cheryl alongside 3 older sisters, with a father who was not around in any consistent way. From early on, football was the thing that gave his life structure and direction, and he treated it that way. At West Babylon High School, he captained the football team for 2 seasons, helped them reach their first ever undefeated regular season, and won All-American honors in wrestling 3 separate times. The school retired his jersey number before he even turned 20. He came back every single year after he left to give motivational talks to the kids still there. That was the kind of dude people saw when they looked at Jovan Belcher. The big college programs passed on him anyway, so he went to the University of Maine, a smaller school where NFL scouts were not exactly lining up outside the doors. He became one of the best defensive players that program had ever produced, graduated in 3.5 years with a degree in child development and family relations, and while he was there, he was a member of a campus group called Male Athletes Against Violence. Let that sit for a second, because we are going to come back to it. When the 29 NFL draft came and went without his name being called once, Belcher signed as an undrafted free agent with the Kansas City Chiefs and just went to work like he always had. By 2010, he had earned a full-time starting role. By 2011, he was posting a career-high 87 combined tackles and leading the team. By 2012, he was earning approximately $1.9 million on a 1-year deal, pulling up to training in a Bentley Continental GT, and widely regarded as a player who had willed himself into the league through nothing but effort. He was 25 years old and had built something from absolutely nothing. In the midst of all of these, he got involved with a woman who will change the trajectory of his life completely. Cassie Perkins was born on October 14, 1990 in McKinney, Texas. She grew up in the Austin area, graduated from Anderson High School, and by every account was the kind of person who made any room she walked into feel warmer. She taught praise dance at her church, coached youth softball, and spent time working in after-school programs with kids. She was studying to become a teacher. Teachers who had her as a student remembered her as respectful, outgoing, and someone who went out of her way to include people who did not have a big social circle. She met Belcher through Jamal Charles, whose wife was her cousin. She moved to Kansas City to be closer to him and became part of the Chiefs women's organization doing charity work alongside other players' partners. She had a full life being built in that city, and in September of 2012, she gave birth to their daughter. They named her Zoe. Behind the image of the hard-working linebacker and the warm-hearted young mother, this relationship had real problems that had been building for a while. Friends and family described frequent arguments between the two, especially in the months after Zoe was born. Money was a constant source of tension. There were disputes over who was responsible for the baby, who was going out too much, and who was holding up their end of things. Earlier that season, Belcher had missed a team meeting because Cassie had not come home from a night out and there was no one to look after Zoe. He had started consulting an attorney about custody. Belcher's mother Cheryl had moved into the couple's home about 2 weeks before the incident, specifically because of escalating tension around finances and the relationship. Now here's the detail that shifts the whole story. What almost nobody outside a very small circle knew at the time was that Belcher had been secretly seeing another woman since around March of 2012. And in late October or November of that year, he texted her saying he would harm Cassie if she didn't leave him alone. The woman took it as a bad joke and didn't report it. Less than 2 months later, it wasn't a joke anymore. The Chiefs organization was already so aware of the couple's issues that they had arranged counseling for them at least twice in October and November. Head coach Romeo Crennel later described the team as bending over backwards to help this man. It wasn't enough to stop what was coming. The evening of November 30th, 2012 started the way a lot of strained nights do between two people who were barely holding it together. Cassie Perkins headed downtown to the Midland Theater for a Trey Songz concert with friends and her cousin. She was 22 years old, a new mother with a baby at home, and this was one of her few nights out. Belcher, meanwhile, was across town at the apartment of the woman he had been seeing on the side, over on Armour Boulevard. They were drinking and playing cards that evening, then later joined her friends at a club in the Power and Light district. He kissed her goodbye in the parking lot around 1:25 a.m., and she later told police he seemed quiet but said he was fine. Instead of going home to her daughter, he drove back to her apartment building and sat outside waiting, but she didn't come back down. He fell asleep in his Bentley with the engine running. Meanwhile, Cassie got home from the concert around 1 in the morning and found him gone. An argument started between them, reportedly about her being out late. After the argument, she reportedly went back out to the Power and Light district herself. Two people doing laps around the city in the middle of the night while their baby slept at home with her grandmother. That is a picture of where things actually were between them.
The first video is from a little after 3 in the morning on December 1st. A police officer pulls behind Belcher, and later the football player can be seen leaving his vehicle and heading into an apartment complex. Throughout it, Belcher is cooperative and thanks the officers as he leaves.
Around 2:50 in the morning, a neighbor called 911 to report a suspicious person asleep in a running car with temporary tags parked on the street. Officers showed up and found Belcher in his Bentley, disoriented at first but coherent once he woke up. He told them he was a Chiefs player, that he was waiting for his girlfriend, and that he had forgotten the building access code. Officers noted no smell of alcohol, slurring, or any visible signs of impairment. He was cooperative the whole time. They told him he had too much to lose to be sitting in a car outside someone's building at 3 in the morning, encouraged him to get somewhere comfortable, and he knocked on a neighbor's door. They recognized him, let him in, gave him a blanket and a pillow, and he slept on their couch. He was relaxed and talkative with them, laughing and telling stories about growing up in New York and going to college in Maine, like a man with not a single thing on his mind. Around 6:30 in the morning, he got up, walked back to his car, and drove home.
Now, this all comes as we do get a clearer picture tonight of a Chiefs player's state of mind before a murder-suicide. Jovan Belcher was drunk.
What those officers could not have known was that the toxicology report released weeks later would confirm Belcher's blood alcohol level at the time of the autopsy was 0.17, more than double Missouri's legal driving limit of 0.08. Given that alcohol processes out of the body over time, experts said it was almost certainly higher when he was behind that wheel earlier in the night. A Mothers Against Drunk Driving representative later publicly questioned whether a regular person who was not a professional athlete would have been let go that easily. That question has never really been answered. When Belcher got home, Cassie was there, and an argument started almost immediately. His mother Cheryl was in the house and heard it escalating near the master bathroom. She had made a habit of staying out of their arguments because she had been accused of interfering before, so she waited. She heard Belcher's voice rising, heard him saying things like, "Don't say that to me," and heard how heated the whole thing was getting. Then she heard gunshots.
Jovan Belcher was supposed to be taking the field today for the Chiefs. That is not going to happen, however. Police say Belcher killed his girlfriend on Saturday and then killed himself in front of his coach.
Cassie Perkins was shot multiple times with a .40 caliber firearm, sustaining wounds to the neck, chest, abdomen, hip, back, and leg. There was a wound on her right hand consistent with someone trying to shield themselves. 8 spent shell casings were found on the bathroom floor. When Cheryl ran in, Cassie was on the floor, but still breathing. What happened next is something that is very hard to make sense of. According to the police report, Belcher knelt down beside Cassie, kissed her on the forehead, told her he was sorry, then went to his mother and his infant daughter Zoe, kissed them both, and kept apologizing before walking out. He got into his Bentley, unconsciously smearing Cassie's blood on the gear shift, and drove away. Cheryl called 911, and on that recorded call, she pleaded with Cassie to stay awake, telling her the ambulance is on the way, while baby Zoe cries in the background. She told the dispatcher they had been arguing and that Belcher had left. Cassie Perkins did not survive.
It's a different scene some 5 hours later. This footage is from a dash cam of an officer racing to Arrowhead Stadium, where Belcher shot himself in front of team officials shortly after killing Cassie Perkins at their home.
Belcher drove approximately 5 miles from the house to the Kansas City Chiefs practice facility at 1 Arrowhead Drive. Somewhere during that drive, he broke the rear view mirror inside the car, and shattered glass was later found on the dashboard along with cuts on his fingers. When he pulled into the parking lot, Scott Pioli was one of the few people already there that Saturday morning. Pioli saw Belcher step out of the Bentley with a firearm pressed to his own head. Belcher was completely calm. He told Pioli that he had done it, that he had taken Cassie's life, thanked the organization for everything they had given him, asked Pioli and team owner Clark Hunt to look after Zoe, and asked to speak with Coach Crennel.
But were you aware that he had killed his girlfriend by the time he got to the Chiefs facility? Did you know what had happened?
He had told me he did.
Pioli called Crennel. Head coach Romeo Crennel arrived with linebackers coach Gary Gibbs and other staff members, and they spent several minutes standing in that parking lot trying to talk Belcher down, telling him he had options and that they could help. Crennel reportedly told him directly that he was taking the easy way out. Belcher thanked them again, told them he had to go, and walked away toward a row of parked cars.
Authorities say he began talking to coaches.
When he pulled up, they were never in danger. He never threatened them or anything. They talked for a little bit.
Suddenly, he walked away, taking his own life as the Chiefs' head coach and the general manager witnessed in horror.
Police had been called to the facility at 8:01 in the morning after a call from Chiefs security. As the sirens got closer, Belcher got down on one knee behind a parked car, made the sign of the cross on his chest, and took his own life with a single shot to the right side of his head. Scott Pioli watched it happen from a few feet away. Because Belcher passed at the scene, there was no arrest, courtroom, and trial. The Kansas City Police Department compiled a nearly 60-page investigation report that was released publicly around December 18, 2012, and the Jackson County prosecutor formally ruled it a murder unliving after reviewing the full file. Everything a trial would have brought out instead came through those public records.
This report from the Jackson County Medical Examiner's Office comes out about 6 weeks after Jovan Belcher shot his girlfriend, Cassie Perkins, and then took the gun and turned it on himself.
The toxicology report shows Belcher's blood alcohol content was twice the legal limit at the time of the autopsy.
The autopsy was carried out on December 2, 2012, and the full results were made public on January 14, 2013. Belcher's blood alcohol level was confirmed at 0.17, and no illegal substances were found in his system. For Cassie, the autopsy confirmed she had been struck by multiple rounds from a .40 caliber firearm, with wounds significant enough on their own to be fatal, affecting major organs including the lung, liver, spleen, and kidney. No illegal substances were found in her system either. The dashcam footage from the 3 a.m. police encounter was also released to the public around December 7th. It showed Belcher in his idling Bentley, then waking up, having a calm conversation with officers, and heading inside the building. Nothing in that footage gave the officers a reason to hold him. He was let go that same night a woman would lose her life. The day after all of this happened, the Kansas City Chiefs played their scheduled home game against the Carolina Panthers. They held a moment of silence before kickoff, and they were deliberate about what that moment was for. It was not for Belcher. It was for all victims of domestic violence and their families. The organization made a conscious decision not to frame the man who committed an act of domestic violence as someone to be honored in any public way. The Chiefs won that game 27-21, which was only their second win of the entire season. A locker room full of men who had just watched their teammate take his own life went out and played football the very next day. That same Sunday night, NBC broadcaster Bob Costas stepped into the national debate during the halftime of Sunday Night Football and said something that split the country almost instantly.
The incident reignited the gun control debate. Sportscaster Bob Costas taking a stand on Sunday Night Football.
If Jovan Belcher didn't possess a gun, he and Cassie Perkins would both be alive today.
Some people thought he was completely right to say it. Others felt he was using a tragedy to push a political point before Casey was even buried. Costas later acknowledged the timing was a mistake, while standing by the broader idea. The debate around firearm access, player mental health, and domestic violence in the NFL had all just landed in the public conversation at the same time, and none of it had a clean answer. About a year after the tragedy, Belcher's family had his body exhumed so that his brain could be examined by specialists, and the findings that came out of that examination in September 2014 added a whole new layer to the conversation around this case. Neuropathologist Dr. Piotr Kozlowski examined the brain tissue and found neurofibrillary tangles of tau protein in all 7 sections of the hippocampus that were analyzed. That kind of buildup in the brain is a known sign of CTE, which stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disease that develops from repeated head impacts over time. CTE affects your mood, memory, ability to control your emotions, and impulse control. It had already been found in the brains of several other NFL players, and now Jovan Belcher, at 25 years old, was being added to that list.
Did football play a role?
I'm sorry.
In him taking his life? What role?
I don't think, no. I think he had a personal situation. It was one of the things that Jovan, because I got to know him actually when he was a senior at the University of Maine. And it was football and his mother were the only stable things in his entire life. And it was the thing that gave him structure, gave him worth. And so it's again, tragic doesn't even begin to, because when you take it away from Jovan, there's this poor girl that lost her life. To me, this wasn't just about Jovan. There was domestic abuse involved. This is, like I said,
the wrongful death lawsuit filed by Belcher's mother alleged the Chiefs were aware of warning signs but ignored them, pressured him to play through injuries, and never properly addressed his neurological health despite knowing about the problems. A parallel suit was filed on behalf of daughter Zoe. The Chiefs denied those claims and maintained there was no well-documented history of concussions. Neither case has ever had a publicly confirmed resolution, which usually means a quiet settlement out of court. Experts were careful to note that finding CTE in someone's brain does not automatically prove it caused any specific action. Alcohol, a long history of relationship strain, a pattern of threats, and a volatile night all had their own roles to play in what happened on that morning. Science cannot cleanly separate those threats, and anyone who tells you it can is oversimplifying something that is genuinely complicated.
With heavy hearts, Chiefs players took the field just one day after teammate Jovan Belcher killed his girlfriend before taking his own life outside the stadium.
Here's what made this story even heavier for the Kansas City franchise specifically, because this was not the first time something like this had happened with a Chiefs player. On September 15, 1980, former Kansas City Chiefs offensive lineman Jim Tyrer, who had been one of the most celebrated players in franchise history, took his wife Martha's life at their home in the Kansas City area before taking his own. Tyrer had played 13 seasons in the AFL and NFL, won multiple All-Pro honors, appeared in several championship games, including Super Bowl IV, and had his name in the Chiefs Hall of Fame. He was 41 years old when it happened, more than a decade removed from the game, and by all accounts had been struggling badly with the transition into regular life after football ended. He left 4 children behind. The comparison was also made to Chris Benoit, the professional wrestler who took the lives of his wife Nancy and their son in 2007 before taking his own. Benoit's brain was later found to have some of the most severe CTE damage ever recorded in any sports-related case, and his story became one of the major turning points in how the wrestling world began to seriously reckon with head injuries.
Probably never will.
It's the latest in a string of NFL player suicides. Earlier this year, former Atlanta Falcons safety Ray Easterling took his life with a gun. So did Tennessee Titans wide receiver O.J. Murdoch. And in May, NFL legend Junior Seau died after shooting himself in the chest.
All of these cases together forced a conversation the NFL had been avoiding for a very long time. The problem was not just one man making one terrible decision. There was something in the structure of the sport itself, the physical punishment, the performance pressure, the identity built entirely on what you can do on a field that kept producing these outcomes over and over again across different teams, cities, and decades.
We are overwhelmed with both sadness and confusion.
Zoe Belcher grew up without either parent, and the Chiefs started a foundation in her name. Cassie's family held memorial services in Texas that drew hundreds who came specifically to celebrate who she was, not how she was taken. The most important voice in this story was never Jovan Belcher's. One thing that still baffles me about this case is how Belcher kept his composure in front of the officers while being heavily intoxicated. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.